So how do you tell good stories? Since you clicked on this video, I'm assuming you don't need me to explain all of the complex intricacies of why stories are extremely helpful and how humans have used them since the dawn of time to explain events, and how if you know how to tell a good story, then people will be more pulled towards you. You'll have a more vibrant social life, and you'll also finally get girls. So, since you already know why you want to learn a story, let's just get that started. First of all, you need a story to tell. You can't be like telling other people's stories. What's the point in that? You need your own stories, and that requires you go out into the world and you do things. You can't just live in your regular schedule where you wake up, you go to work, maybe school, you go to the gym, you come back home, watch some of my videos. Of course, you only watch me, right? And then maybe you go to the top link in the description and you buy the social protocol because you know you want to learn how to socialize, and then you go to sleep. How are you going to gain stories and life experience with that? You need to do things. So go out at least once a week and just like spend the entire day outside, talk to tons of people, go out with your friends to like a fancy restaurant, maybe go to a new city that you've never been to before. There's probably like this, you can probably go to the capital of your country with just a train. Train tickets are like what, £2, £3? You can do it. You'll probably gain a lot of stories from doing that. I mean, every single one of my weekly adventures is me literally just doing that same thing. So go out and get stories. Even if they seem mundane, just get them and then kind of write them down. So I have my phone here. I mean, my script is here. But on your phone, you can actually just write down something to recall your memory of the story. Let's say you have a story of going to this city, and then in that city something happens, like maybe some guy who's working as a waiter says something weird to you. Then you could literally just write down in your notes, weird waiter, and then you'll remember it. Because a lot of people do have stories, but they forget them. And if you forget your stories, then what's the point? How are you going to tell those to people if you don't even remember them? So that's the first aspect. You need to actually have stories to tell. Once you have stories to tell, now we can actually go into the main script. So first of all, you need to use but so instead of and then. A lot of people tell stories kind of saying this happened and then 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 this happened. It's a really bad way of telling stories simply because it's so predictable and linear. When you say and then, you extend the story. It's equivalent to watching like a 30-minute video. It just keeps going on and it just doesn't stop. It just keeps going. There's no changes in it. Everything is predictable because and then normally entails that it follows. I wake up and then I brush my teeth. It's not that difficult to predict. If I say something like, I wake up, but then I was hit with a thought, this thought would potentially change the entire scope of my life. I pondered, is this thought really the right thing? Now you're curious. What thought did I have? How would it change my life? But then, rather than extending the story, which is quite boring because people have very limited attention spans now, by using but then, it kind of adds suspense, which is one of the key points in the story, to add suspense so the viewer is kind of curious what's going to happen next. And it also adds a kind of twist. It's not as predictable, it's not linear. This thing happens, but then this thing happens. Well, what is that thing? You can't predict it because it's but then. But entails that maybe there's a negative or something surprising that happened. It always makes the viewer think, oh, something new is going to happen. It's not just, the same convoluted, redundant thing is going to happen, and I can predict it because it's such a linear pattern. So keep in mind, don't use but, don't use and then, just don't. Use but and so. I woke up, but I had this thought, so it made me do this. And you can still use and then, just don't use it that much. Use it strategically, very limitedly. And then that caused me to do this. But I was hit with two choices. So I gathered up the courage and I made this decision. But then this person came and told me, no, that's not the right decision. I was conflicted. But then I remembered something. You know how that can just be so much more fun than this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this. It's just so repetitive. The next thing is to remember commas. This is something that so many people forget, and it's genuinely so annoying. I forget it as well. I'm not like telling you I'm some great storyteller. I make these mistakes. And I guess this is something I should talk about right now. When you're getting better at storytelling, the most important thing is analysis. You don't get better from practicing, you get better from self-feedback. So, for example, if you want to get better at telling stories, you put your camera up like this and you just tell a story. And then you watch back the video and you go, I made a mistake here, here, here. And you tell the same story and you make it better. And then you'll naturally improve with storytelling. It's not just, I tell a story and that's it, and I'll suddenly get better. No, if you do something, it enforces those same habits. If you do the wrong thing every time you tell a story, you just enforce yourself doing the wrong thing. So if you want to get better, you need to do self-analysis, and that's something I often don't do. So if you want to get better, even with this advice that I'm giving you, you need to actually train. And that's a difficult part. Most people don't want to do it. So you need to ask yourself now, are you willing to dedicate 10 minutes a day, literally just 10 minutes, to record a story, analyze it, and record another story every single day, just so you can get better at storytelling? So you can tell stories like this maybe to your YouTube channel, so other people can hear your stories, maybe to tell them to your friends. Are you willing to dedicate yourself? If you aren't, then maybe this video isn't for you. Maybe you're just here for, I don't know, me. Sorry, I'm not into internet people. I don't know who you are, so you can't have a crush on me, I'm sorry. So, the next portion is remembering to use commas. Everyone uses commas when you're writing. Everyone. Because it's quite a staple in the English language. But everyone, every single person, forgets to use commas when they are actually telling a vocal story, because it's so easy to, instead of using a comma, to just say and that kind of goes into the last point. Don't use and then. You should basically never have to use it, but only use it strategically. So you don't want to be in this situation where you're saying, I'll do this and then I'll do this and then I'll do this. You want to use commas. And I know it's easy to forget them, but genuinely, this may be one of the most important parts of this video. You need to remember that you don't need to extend everything. You can pause, just like this. If you're listing objects, you don't need to say, my friend was telling me this, and then he also told me this, and then he also told me this, and then we went to this place and we did that. You don't need to say that. You can just say, my friend told me this, this, and this. Finally, after he stopped talking because I got annoyed and infuriated with his dumb, stupid voice, we went to this other place. I was shocked. I didn't understand why this place had weird red flooring with discolored tiles on the roof. It didn't make any sense. You see how I changed that from just this mundane, redundant, and, to comma, comma, comma. I kind of separated it with pauses. You can pause. You don't need to keep talking. It's fine. Silence, oftentimes, is something that enhances what you say next. So remember to strategically use silence, use commas, use full stops. It can very much significantly improve your story, It can add suspense, and it can also make it so the next words you say, people will pay attention to so much more. Now, you don't want like 10-second pauses. Now, that kind of gets annoying. Like, imagine if I say this and then. Imagine if I just did that every like 1 minute into this uh, video. Imagine how annoyed you'd be. Like, come on, stop pausing. It's annoying. You'd just be skipping through it to see what I'm saying next. So remember commas. You need to use them a lot. Don't use just ands to try and transition. Like a mistake I'd normally make. If you look at my last weekly adventure video, I was saying we did this and then we went to this place and then we did that. When I could have said we did this, we went to this place, then we did that. It just would have using and is just such a redundant phrase. Just in general, you should try and avoid using and, because you'll find yourself just using it a lot, because it's just such a very easy to use word. You can basically use it to extend any sentence. This happened and then this happened. You need to kind of just get into the habit of not using it. The next portion of this video is to forget loser characters. There are some characters, there are some things in your story that literally are not needed. And I know it kind of sucks. Imagine you're telling a story about you going to this place with a friend, but your friend isn't even relevant in it. And now you can't tell your experience with your friend, and you basically need to tell the story as if you went alone. Because your friend isn't relevant. He doesn't do it. I mean, of course, I'm not saying your friend isn't important. I'm saying in this specific story, your friend hasn't contributed to it. You understand? Your friend isn't necessary in this story, so you don't need to include him. And it's kind of annoying because there are some parts of the story that you kind of want to add to the story because they were interesting to you personally. But they aren't really necessary for the general benefit of the story and to make it entertaining. There are some parts of the story that maybe you just don't need to add. If you go to a place and the story is centered around this place and your friend isn't relevant, maybe you went with a friend and you had conversations with him, he was fun, but he didn't really add to the story. You don't need him in the story. Don't add him. Brevilicence is key. And I quite like that word, breviloquence. It essentially means being concise with your speech. You need to be as concise as possible. Add enough detail to make it fun, to explain every key event, but also don't just add the small things that don't really matter. I went to the restaurant with me and my friends. Ask yourself before you record the story, is your friend important to the story? It's a lot harder to do this when you're already talking, because now it's harder to think whilst I'm already telling the story. Is my friend that important? Think about it before you tell the story. Finally, you need to act it out. When I'm telling a story, I use different tonalities. I act it out as well. If I'm telling a story and I'm kind of telling you about some difficult struggle I had to face, like a physical struggle, I'll often kind of act it out like, I'm struggling, I'm grappling onto these walls, the rocks were so difficult to climb up, I've never done rock climbing before, it was the top, I finally got it. You see how not only am I acting it out, which of course just makes it so much easier to kind of, empathize. Empathize with what I'm saying because you can understand it now. Rather than me just saying, yeah, it was difficult to climb up the rock, but I finally climbed up it. It's kind of like I'm showing you the actual struggle. I'm like showing how difficult it was to climb up. I was like, maybe I had adrenaline because I'm trying to climb up quickly and I'm kind of like a little worried. You see how that just adds so much more emotion to the story. Another thing I do is I give tonality. I use different tonalities and different speeds of my vocality. If I'm telling a fast-paced part of the story, I won't just talk like mundane. Yeah. So I was really scared and stressed, and I was running away from impending doom. But I found a car and I got into the car and I managed to get away. That's such a boring way to tell a story. Now, this doesn't require much practice. This mainly comes down to energy, like physical energy. You need to actually put energy into what you're saying. When you're talking in general, you need to actually try and talk with energy, with passion. And that just comes down to living a more energetic life. Do healthy things for you. Eat good food. Work out at the gym. Have good hygiene. All of these things that just makes you a more energetic person. Take supplements like vitamin D. Most people are deficient. Because you don't want to be this guy who's just mundane. You're tired, telling the story kind of quiet like this. It's kind of tiring. You don't want to like speak quickly or with energy. You need to talk with energy because that energy gets transferred from me to you, from you to your viewers. So use different speeds. Fast-paced portions of the story, speak quicker. Maybe speak kind of like you're a little stressed out, you don't know what to do. When you're making a difficult decision as well. Maybe if it's like a really big decision and you need to make it quickly and you're stressed, you're like, I'm combining these two decisions. I don't know what to do. I can do this, but no, I don't know if that's the best choice because if I do this instead, I may get this benefit rather than this, but I only have one decision. Fast paced. Maybe at a slower part in the story, you talk with a deeper voice. I woke up from my bed. I was conflicted the second I had awoken. There were two choices that I could make. Either take the blue pill or take the red pill. I had already knew my decision long ago. However, being faced with it right now, it seemed a lot more difficult. I ignored the mental backlash from me just waking up and managed to rekindle all of my previous thoughts on what I would do in said situation. I grabbed the red pill and I ate it. And I mean, you could talk quickly in that scenario. It depends on what you want the emotion to be like. But maybe if you're talking about something that you're firm about, or maybe you're talking about something that is kind of slow, you don't really care about it that much, you don't need to speak at the same speed every single second. You can talk quicker at some parts, slower at some parts, higher pitched at some parts, lower pitched at some parts. Depends on what you want. Maybe curious. You can sound like a scientist. Maybe you can sound like some British person. Ah, yep. I have nothing else in my script. Check the top link in the description. Buy my program. I want your money. You'll also learn how to socialize if you buy it. So it's a win-win. Remember, consistency is over a lifetime. Bye-bye.